Yo, 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 yo. Yes, this light is bright as hell. But yo, by the way, I'm Terrell, Hall of Fame, D-Line, tbkc, and all that sweet, beautiful, wonderful shit. All right, let's talk about and I've talked about the pocket some, but I also want to reiterate something about the pocket. The pocket, yeah, I switched my drink up. The pocket itself, one of the reasons that it's very, very important for us to watch how clean the dog is, and y'all have heard me speak on this before, is the dwarfism gene. Now, the biggest problem with the dwarfism gene, and I'm just saying this as a problem, the biggest problem with the dwarfism gene is this. With it being throughout the breed the way it is, and it's one of the ways that the real American bullies started to get shorter and shorter and shorter, is that it's going to be compounded one way or the other. You know what I mean? The thing that we have to watch for is that the issues that come with that. And this is where we rely heavily on phenotype. You have to be almost double careful with the pocket, because I've come to find out that when you start to see easty westy with the pocket, when you start to see bad bites with the pocket, when you start to see these little things that wouldn't be such a big deal with anybody else or anything else, it becomes a big deal with the pocket because of the underlying issue of dwarfism. Now, some of you have talked about, and y'all seen the video where I talk about, bulldog versus dwarfism. But the thing of it is this also is that bulldogs, a lot of the bulldogs that people would use today now also have dwarfism genes. The English bulldog, it carries the dwarfism gene. Definitely the French bulldog carries the dwarfism gene. Some people are using Boston Terriers, weird as shit. Carries the dwarfism gene. So as that's compounded, we're not just compounding for the height, and that's oftentimes what we equate the dwarfism gene to. We're also have to be thinking about the fact that these particular dogs will come with dwarfism issues. And that could be, one testicle, that could be super bad feet, that could be the heart murmurs, that could be the elongated palates, the cleft palates, the tails, the high rears, a multitude of issues, including neurological issues. These are the things that we have to pay very, very, very close attention to, because once it's highlighted that these particular genes are starting to come to the forefront, we have to make a change. And one of the changes that I've told you guys is that, and you can do it within the pocket scope, by the way, and that would be, of course, all the way up to 17 inches, you have the ability to use, a pocket that's 17 inches. That's under 17 inches. So some of you who have the 14 and 15 inch dogs, you might want to go towards the bigger dogs in the class sometimes. The cleaner dogs in the class who might not carry quite as much mass, but the dog is just incredibly clean and not a ton of the blood that you have. These are ways that you can get away from the genetics that are starting to show themselves. And especially if you've had this for, let's say, a couple generations. You've had these dogs for a couple generations, so it's like this is something that's just now starting to present itself. You have to come up with a detailed plan to make sure that you're going away from that. And this is what I will remind you, and this is one of the most common mistakes when breeding, is that you don't fix everything in one generation. So say, for instance, I had a litter that had bad tails, right? Two of the puppies had a bad tail. And that's rare for me, but now I have to study that pedigree, and I have to look and see everything that went on there and try to figure out what's going to be the best route for me to go about making sure that this bad tail gene does not pop up again. And, we have to identify if the bad tail gene came from this, that, or the other, and move forward. The dog that I would choose to breed, let's say the girl too, that has a bad tail, if I chose to breed her, it would be a dog that has literally 5, 6 generations of no history of these bad tails. There are dogs like that out there. Now, that's not to say that nobody in the family had it, but you would see in their pedigree, you should line up and say, okay, I'm gonna go back to your great 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 grandparents and look down the list. Are any of these dogs coming forward? Do any of them have bad tails or issues that are known like this? And if the answer is a no, then I feel very, very confident that I'm adding a strong gene to something of that is presenting itself in the phenotype that typically wasn't there. Now that doesn't apply when it's been you yourself has had 3 generations of bad tails. You know, now you might start to think that the gene has gotten to the point to where you're probably going to have to abort the mission. The operation of trying to fix and trying to get away from that might not be too successful, because the thing of it is that even if you are successful in creating a litter that doesn't have this gene, those puppies still have a very, very strong gene for kink tails if it's been there for 3 generations. You know what I mean? So it's something that you would have to really, really focus on moving away from, you know. And this is the whole point of the outcross, and why a lot of people are always scared of the outcross is because they feel like that they lose whatever they've been trying to lock in on the line breeding. But the thing about breeding is that you don't get everything done in one go around, and it takes a lot of studying. Sometimes the dogs that I may or may not use will be dogs that are pretty much dogs that you may not have ever heard of, dogs that you may not be too familiar with, but I'll go in a different direction, and I've done research on them enough to know that, hey, these are some incredible dogs. You know, and it's just like, excuse me, I kicked the camera, but it's just like the dog that I have, Creed. You know, Creed is heavy, heavy Camelot blood, a very big boy with incredibly big genes behind him. So at some point in time, I'm going to do a couple breedings with Big Creed to some of these females. And I know you're like, what are you trying to get? It's a step. It's a step in the right direction for what I want. I want to have 100-pound females in the yard with great drive, with great conformation. He brings that to the table. So it's a step-by-step process. I breed them to a female, see what kind of females they throw, see where the size range is, watch them grow. Okay, if you're still a little bit big for what I like, I'll bring you down to another short standard female, and we'll get there. And now, if we're starting to hit our mark of what we want in size and all the conformation and the temperament holds, then I start to blend that with a more ideal male that will help lock in that size, because his genetics have already been there from generation to generation. Because just because you did 2 breedings to get down to that you know, height or whatever you were trying to get to there, doesn't mean it's locked in. The lock in when you're doing a process like that will come from the opposite side blood, and that's where you would make your bones at, so to speak. But you know, all of this breeding stuff is about patience. You really, really have to be patient. If you're doing one breeding and you believe that that one breeding is going to make or break or do everything that you need to do in one, you know, in one swoop, you might be disappointed. It's a good possibility you're going to be disappointed. You have to make a thorough plan, and I hope that your plan is always a 5-generation plan. You know, and I know that sounds like a lot, but if you're breeders, you should have a 5-generation plan to where you're like, I'm going to do this with this dog, this with that dog. And you might not have the dog per se that you're going to do in generations 3, 4, and 5 already named, but you'll know the qualities that you want for that dog to help you maintain and lock in exactly what you are wanting to get as an end product at the end of those 5 generations. But anyway, until next time, y'all, God bless y'all. Much love. Peace.